get this guy on, Charlie Krausse, who does a show. I found out the other day he was doing. I'm doing some research trying to get some people to come on. He does a show that covers everything from college football, college basketball, right down the alley with the college football playoffs. So here's Charlie coming on. Hi, Charlie.
Hey, Chris. How are y'all?
Doing good. Thanks for coming on tonight. I know you 2 days before Christmas and everybody's busy running around the stores making sure everybody has a gift, or else you're going to be that guy. Forget to drop something off. So,
Amazon and I have been good friends this year, so I've avoided trying to be that guy. The package delivery people know where I live quite well these days. But
nice.
Yeah, this is a great time. Bowls are starting up, and then college basketball is underway, so it's been a fun time regardless. So
yeah. Well, let's talk about the bowl game on right now on ESPN. I want to call it the Florida State, the Memphis versus Florida Atlantic. You got Willie Taggart, who was with Florida State last year at this time, or no, he got fired after the Miami game. And then you have Memphis, who Florida State took the Memphis coach to become their coach. So I guess this is two teams that has some connection. So what do you think about what's going on right now?
Well, and I hate to say unsurprised by it, but Memphis, at least halfway through, is doing what I thought they would do. And even though Brady White's not the best quarterback in Conference USA, you can just tell he is next level compared to the other side of the ball. Florida Atlantic really hasn't had much to show so far. Maybe they'll make a game of it in the second half, but so far Memphis is just the superior team.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the college football playoff. We had, the 4 teams picked on Sunday. You had Notre Dame taking on Alabama, and you got Clemson and Ohio State Part 3. It seems like this is like we're watching Rocky and Star Wars sagas every year, in college football, because they just want to keep the same rerun. But Ohio State played Clemson last year, and Clemson had a hard time with Ohio State. You think Ohio State might have their number this year?
Honestly, I don't think so. I think this is, like you said, a Rocky 5 in the making, where Alabama and Clemson are going to rematch. Ohio State, just last year they came down to that final drive, and if y'all remember right, there was the pick in the end zone that sealed it for Clemson, and it was a close game and all the ratings and all that kind of stuff. I think if Clemson's defense is back to full strength, which it hasn't been all season long, and I'm not a Clemson supporter or a Clemson homer, but I'm trying to be as neutral as I can on this. Unfortunately, they showed Notre Dame what a full defense looks like. And even though it was a great game the first time around, the second time around, Clemson came, wake-up call. And I see Clemson just wanting to lick their chops again and face Alabama one more time in Rocky Part 38.
Oh, jeez. And this time it's going to be down in Miami. It seems like every year is a different location. So but I think Notre Dame could beat Alabama if Notre Dame gets everybody, healthy, right, George, and everybody in the same sync, because they knocked off Clemson. It took them double overtime in South Bend, but they could do it. If they put, if Brian Kelly does his homework, but he only has a week.
I'll be honest with you. We talked about it before the show, Chris. Notre Dame, they beat Clemson at home, and when you give Trevor Lawrence a reason to come out and beat you, okay, like the fans that stormed the field did, and I heard the stories that I heard about what went down on the field. You don't need to give him a reason to have a chip on his shoulder. He's just going to take that and multiply that factor, and he's just gonna take it to you. And that defense that they have, it was great. It was great to see their defense back. And I'm not playing the Notre Dame card, but look what's going on with their offensive line. Their 2 big guys are out. It's not an excuse. It's got to be next man up. We're not gonna, as a guy who covers them. It's not an excuse to say you didn't have your two regulars in there. You're playing Division I football. You got to fill the spot.
Well, here's my take on this. So the average college football game, let's say, has an average of 14 possessions. So the first thing Notre Dame's got to do is cut down the volume of possessions and play keep away. So they do that. Let's say it's narrowed down to about 11 possessions, maybe 12 at most.
Yep.
They've got to force about 5 punts. 5 punts is the magic. 5 punts and or a total of combined turnovers.
Yes,
That's
sir.
limiting Alabama to 4 touchdowns and about 2 field goals. That's still 34 points Alabama's going to score. So Notre Dame's offense needs 5 touchdowns to win that. If they do that formula, yeah, they can win. But that's a big formula that so far 0 out of 11 teams have conquered.
And field goals aren't going to cut it. And that's what happened in that first possession against Clemson this past weekend. You can't go down the length of the field and then ask your guy to kick a 51-yard field goal and think that you're going to come out on top. You got to convert 3s to 7s. There's no way that you're going to win a football game with field goals.
And they have 3 very talented weapons, Alabama does, on their team. The only reason they're not going to finish first, second, and third in the Heisman votings is because they're all going to lose votes from each other. But Devonta Smith might be the most dangerous player in college football. He might not win the Heisman. If I had a vote, he would win my Heisman vote. But he could score anytime he touches the ball. And I just don't know. And I think Clemson's defense might be able to limit Alabama's offense, but I don't know of any other defense that can match with Alabama's offense.
Yeah. Well, Charlie, let's bring in Ewan. Ewan just came back from doing his stuff. Ewan, we're talking about the college football playoff, these games between Alabama, Notre Dame, and Clemson and Ohio State, and we're just going through, about Alabama and Notre Dame. What do you think about that game?
Well, Charlie, I wanted to ask you something that you just I came back on, and you talked about possessing the football. To me, that means you can run the football. How does Notre Dame up front? I mean, I got to tell you something. I've been very impressed with their offensive line. I've been impressed with how they pick up blitzes. I've been impressed with their constant. It seems like they're consistent. Charlie, where do you fall on whether Notre Dame can effectively run the football or not?
Well, the thing about the ACC is, whether you guys agree with this statement or not, it's turned into the running back league. And so they do have one of the top, you could argue, 5 best running backs in the ACC are some of the 5 best running backs in the nation, or at least you put those 5 and they would easily be top 10. So right there, the ball falls on Kyron Williams' shoulders. And he's got to do what he does. And I'm not talking about handoff every play, but Ian Book's got to make some good decisions. And he's got some feet under him as well. So if he drops back and if there's nothing there, take a 3-yard gain, take a 5-yard gain, be smart about it. And then Brian Kelly needs to be smart about this. And you don't need to snap the ball on the 20. You need to snap the ball on the 5, assuming the score is 7-3 or 10-10 or something close. If you're down 17-0, then throw out that game plan and you got to figure out a way to play catch up. Because what was it a couple of years ago, like 35-3 or something? Right. Notre Dame can't get into a track meet. Notre Dame, the Vegas says Notre Dame's a extremely heavy underdog, but Vegas isn't always right. And there is a formula to beat Alabama. It doesn't happen often, but and the one thing I've never met the guy, and I'd probably be scared to death. His hitman would probably come after me if I said it to him. But the way to beat Nick Saban is have him not prepared for you, because what seems to happen the most when Alabama loses is he's not ready for something, and you've done something to him that he's not ready for, and to catch him off guard.
Charlie, and you can do that as I talked with someone earlier today. If Notre Dame goes dink and doink and that kind of thing, taking the short yardage versus trying to go for the big ball all the time, I think the small ball can come out with a victory that way.
Well, and even though he's fired, look at the person who's beat Alabama the most, Gus Malzahn. So how has he beat Alabama more than any other SEC coach combined in the current SEC rankings? He's done it with a heavy ground attack. couple of trick plays, and then every now and then going deep. But it's the RPOs, it's a ground game, it's time of possession, and then, like I said, Alabama's still scoring somewhere between 28 and 34 points. So there is a way to win, but you're going in knowing you've got to play this one style of game, and it's got to go to the way you script it.
It's got to go flawless.
Charlie, I just feel like even if they're not, explosive in the running game, even if they're not averaging 4 or 5 yards a pop, the effectiveness in terms of the play action, I think, will just open up a little bit for Ian Book and throwing the ball downfield. Are you kind of with me on that same accord, or do you think they have to have 150, 200 yards rushing in this game to keep Alabama from scoring the 34?
Well, and somebody once told me the rushing yardage could be it could be a hidden stat that means nothing, because if they break a 76-yard run on the second play of the game and you have 115 yards at halftime, well, 76 was on one play, so it loses the credibility. Mm-hmm. If they are moving the ball consistently, and yes, with play action, and they're taking the game into the second half, and then especially in the fourth quarter, because that's when the D-line will wear out. And this is where Alabama's strength is. Their D-line, they sub out the 5 stars and put in the second string, which is 5 stars. So if you're making that 10-man rotation play a lot of downs, where most teams have a 3-4-man rotation on that D-line, that's where the SEC normally has that strength, is on the O-line and D-line, and you can wear them down. But I sound like a broken record here, but you got to keep going back to that one way that's going to win, and I don't think a shootout is the way. You don't want these 3-play UCF 3-play 96-yard drives all passes, and that's nice for one time, but look what happened to Ole Miss when they did that against Alabama. They needed that one drive over this year, and they just couldn't come up with it when it mattered the most.
Long, sustained drives and keeping Alabama's offense off the field is key.
Yes, it is. And to put in perspective, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Okay, I got to ask you, coming up, I think the great bowl game this weekend coming up is the Cure Bowl. You got Coastal Carolina taking on Liberty that was supposed to be 2 weeks ago. So that's pretty cool by that bowl committee to get both teams that should have been played, 2 weeks ago down there in Conway, South Carolina, but they had that COVID stuff actually playing in the bowl game. What do you think about those two teams playing?
Well, funny you bring them up. I'm kind of, I don't want to say loyal, but my part of my checks go to Conway because my oldest son is a freshman there, and he reports live on my show from Conway. So an hour and a half today, I was on the press conference with Hugh Freeze and Jamie Chadwell covering the Cure Bowl and all that kind of good stuff. So originally I was nervous that Coastal will feel ousted because the college football playoffs is not made for the group of 5 schools. It's just not. So I thought they would be bitter and ho-hum, it's the Cure Bowl. Well, 24 hours later, they got over that, and they're ramped up and ready to no fault of their own. And Malik Willis, who's tested positive for COVID, he said he had like 1 or 2 symptoms. So even though he had 1 or 2 symptoms of COVID, he wasn't experiencing the hard factors that, really, really affect some people with COVID. So it sounds like it's going to be healthy versus healthy, which is always what you want to see. I believe it's one of 2 non-New Year's 6 bowl games that feature ranked team versus ranked team. The other one being Oklahoma State and, whoever they play. Miami. So it's one of the 2 there. Grayson McCall, redshirt freshman quarterback, he's going to be the real deal. He's cocky enough to be a great leader on the field, but he's also calm enough where he's the duck on the pond. He's calm, he's cool, he's collective. He's only thrown 2 interceptions, and only one of them on that Troy game. I doubt any of y'all saw that one, but did he look like a pure freshman? And then that defensive line for Coastal, look what BYU just did last night to Central Florida and just Dylan Gabriel. But yet BYU scored 3 points the entire second half against Coastal Carolina. That second half adjustment is where Coastal Carolina traditionally comes off. And this might be a shootout early, but if it goes the way the season's gone, I expect people like Silas Kelly and Teron Jackson and then Teddy Gallagher, who's the one that's become really good friends with Marty McGee, and then Pat McAfee with the blonde mullet. Those defensive guys will take over in the second half, and I think Coastal should, in theory, pull away. They're a touchdown favored, but Malik Willis is a special dude.
That's true. Well, Charlie, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. We'll talk a little college basketball in the new year, because I do need to talk to you about Gonzaga playing. You want to play them this weekend, or you want to play them next weekend? Because my brother told me they already played the number two team in the country. They're going to play the number one. They're number one in the country right now, and they're going to play. They already played 2, 3, and 4. And if the tournament started right now, they'll be a second seed in the regional somewhere. That's pretty crazy.
I don't. In my poll and my ranking system, they're number one. They've already whooped up on Iowa. I think they get Baylor later. For me, it's Gonzaga, big drop, everyone else. So, but yeah,
exactly.
It's theirs for the taking. And unlike college football playoffs, Gonzaga actually has a chance to be a 1 seed.
Awesome, Charlie. Happy holidays, Charlie.
Thank you, guys.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much for having me on.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Have a good one, guys.
You too. Thanks.
Bye. That's Charlie Krausse, who does a show. Yeah.